Okay, so I am recording, and what I want to show you is how you can use Mixamo animation to animate your metahuman character. This is something you can do in 5.4. 5.4. It used to be very difficult, but they have some new things in 5.4 that actually makes it really easy to retarget any type of animation to your metahuman. And it used to be something where you had to, because the metahumans in their default position, if you look at them, they're in an A pose. Their arms are sort of down. They're not straight out to the sides in a T pose. And a T pose is the standard pose for motion capture. So most programs require a T pose. And when you try to put motion capture from a T pose onto an A pose, what you're going to find is that the arms are not in the right place anymore. It actually compensates because it's expecting them to start out here, and therefore they're like crossed and doing all kinds of weird things. So they fixed that inside of Unreal Engine 5.4 so that it automatically compensates for it. And you can put the animation that was done in a T pose on an A pose character. So all of the Mixamo characters are T pose characters. You can see the zombie is in a T pose. And so that's what you're going to download for the characters. And you can look through the characters on Mixamo. In order to come in here, you have to sign in. You have to have a free Adobe login. So you don't have to have a subscription to anything. You don't have to, buy anything. But you do have to sign up with Adobe for a free Adobe account. And then you log in under your free Adobe account, and you can come into Mixamo and you can choose any character in here. Now, if you're going to put it on a metahuman character, I would not choose something like the boss here. This character is not normal human proportions. The head bone and stuff is not going to be the same as a normal human. Neither is Mousy here. So don't use something like that for a metahuman. You're going to choose any of these other characters that have human proportions. They even have a little passive marker man that looks like he has mocap balls on his suit. I'm going to go ahead and I'll use that. I think somewhere in here, there's several pages of characters here. And, oh, here it is. One of them is Ybot. This character is the sort of generic Mixamo character. Now, if you're doing an NPC character, yeah, you want to find a character that you're going to actually see in your scene. But if all you're doing is animation for your metahuman, then you don't really need a nice body with a face. You could use this simpler character. It's going to download faster. It's going to be less megabytes when you bring it into your scene. But it'll have all the same motion on it. And if there was any facial motion, it would have that too. But I haven't really seen that the Mixamo characters have much facial, if any facial animation on them. It's mostly for body movements. If we want to add facial movements, we can do it with the Metahuman animator. So I used the zombie character. I downloaded that for the sequence that I showed earlier. I'm going to do the same sequence with this character instead, just for the heck of it. And so the first thing you need to do, you're going to choose a character and it'll be in its T-pose. You need to download that because that's actually what's going to tell Unreal Engine what the skeleton is. And it needs to be in a T-pose. So it doesn't matter which character you use, although, like I said, try to use one with human proportions. But download the T-pose first. And I would, if you're going to download multiple animations for the same character, use the same character the whole time. Don't switch out characters in the middle because all this has to do with something called retargeting. Retargeting is when you put animation that was recorded with a certain size character on a different size character. Everyone has unique limb lengths. Like that's one of the things that if you ever did anything with the old Kinect camera, you could tell different people apart by the length of their limbs with that camera. It's like your fingerprint. Everyone has slightly different limb lengths. And when you record motion capture, it's for your limb length. And when you put it on a different character with different limb lengths, it has to be retargeted to that new character's size. And it can be subtle, but it will change the movement a little bit. And what you want is you want to be able to put any movement on any other character and it still looks good. Well, certain things, if they have really different bodies, it's not going to look good. But if they're humans, you should be able to do this. So when you download something from Mixamo for the first time for the T-pose character, you're going to use FBX binary. There's a lot of choices in here, but just use FBX binary and T-pose and download that. And this one's going to be called the Y-bot. And then you're going to find your animations and you're going to put them on this character by choosing them. And you can search through all kinds of different categories here. Like if I want dance, I can choose dance. I can type in something like zombie. So I'm doing the thriller zombie thing. So here's a bunch of zombie movements that I could use. And I actually started out, there's a whole pack here. I'm not going to click on that because it's a bunch of stuff. But I started with this simple zombie walk. If I was doing something more elaborate, maybe I'd want the zombie to get up from lying down and then start walking or pop up from behind a rock or whatever. But I'm going to just choose this zombie walk. And when I choose it, it goes on the character. I can use my wheel to zoom out. I can use my right mouse button, my left mouse button to orbit. I could make it move in place, which is like a cycle, but we don't want that. We want it to actually move through space. And if the arms and limbs were intersecting, or if I wanted them to be wider, you can change the stride here. You can make it go faster or slower with overdrive. You can make the character arm space wider by pulling it out. Let's see. I don't know which way is which. Yeah, that's more closer together. Oh, it's actually upwards, I think. The arms look higher. Yeah. So it's actually moving the arms up and down, I think. So there's some adjustments you can make to it, but I'm just going to leave it pretty much at the defaults. And I want to download this one, but when I click download this time, I'm going to use the FBX binary again. I'm going to set a frames per second. That's not available on the T-pose because there's no animation. You just want to choose a frames per second. I usually use 30. You could use 60, but it just means your file size is going to be bigger. It might be a little smoother. You could use 24, which is film quality. I'm going to use 30, which is in the middle. And then you don't want with skin turned on. You want to turn that off because we're only using the animation here. We're not using the mesh of this character. The mesh is on the T-pose. That's what we'll import that. And then we don't want keyframe reductions. Just download that. And then I could go over here and choose dance if I wanted the dance stuff to come up. I'll turn off zombie. Actually, I should have left that on. But you can see there's all kinds of dance things here. There's some break dancing. Some old style Charleston dancing. But what I want is thriller dancing. So there's several different parts of the thriller plus an idle. I'm just going to use thriller 1 here. And download it. And again, same settings. Once you set it once, you don't have to set it again. And I'll download that. So that's the 2 clips I'm going to work with here. And I'm going to import those 2 clips into Unreal Engine. So I'll go ahead and stop that because it is, you'll notice that when you bring up Mixamo and you're playing these things, that it's actually your computer fan comes on and it starts crunching your computer a little bit. So you might want to just go ahead and stop it after you finish. And I'll close this one for now because we don't need to see Mixamo anymore. And I should have a couple of clips in my, well, I have a T-pose and I have a clip in my downloads folder, Thriller Part 1 and Zombie Walk. Oh, yeah, 2 clips and YBot is my T-pose. And you can see that the YBot T-pose is pretty small, even though I downloaded the skin because it's such a simple character. If some of those characters are upwards of 40 megabytes, which is not huge, but it is bigger. And the YBot is just the simplest one. But it's going to have everything we need to come into Unreal Engine and add that stuff in. So the first thing that I want to do is I would go ahead and right-click in your content, go to your content, right-click, add some folders, new folders. You can see I've already got them here. I added a Mixamo folder. I have a anims folder, which is going to be my final animations that I create. And that's mainly it. So the Mixamo folder, I'm going to bring the character into. And this one that you see that I have in here, there's a lot of pieces to it. So it actually might be useful for me to go back to my content. I'm going to make a new folder. And I'll just call it the YBot character underscore Mixamo. So I'll put my new stuff in here so I don't mix it up with my other stuff and just make it confusing. So do put it in a folder though, because there's many pieces that are going to come in. You don't want to lose track of them by just sticking them in your content folder. That wouldn't be good. So I'm going to go to my downloads. Normally I would take these and probably put them in a folder in my class folders. I'm just gonna take them directly from downloads right now. First, I'll bring in the YBot. You got to do the YBot first, or even if you're not using the YBot, you do the T-pose character first, because that's going to bring in the skeleton from Mixamo. If you bring in the other ones first, they won't have a skeleton to attach them to. So you got to do the one that has the T-pose first. And I'm going to pull that into my folder here. And then this window will come up to bring in the skeletal mesh. It's going to import the mesh and the skeleton. And I don't have to use anything but the defaults. You do not want to choose a skeleton here, because this is where it's going to bring in the Mixamo skeleton for you. Everything else should be defaults. I don't think I've changed anything here. We're not using animations for the T-pose. You could turn that off. We don't need that on. And then I'll just import all. And you're going to see it process it. Hopefully it'll be pretty fast. You might get some warnings. Yellow warnings are not really a problem, usually. And what I see here is that I have some materials which are very simple, and a skeletal mesh, a physics asset, and the skeleton itself, the YBot skeleton. If I go back to the Mixamo folder where I brought in the zombie, you can see they're much more complex. There's a lot of different texture maps that go with the zombie, but they're still the same main files, which is going to be the skeletal mesh and the physics asset. So I'm going to go back to my YBot Mixamo one, and I want to bring in the two clips now. And I'm going to put them in the same folder. I'll do them one at a time here. So the first one I'll do is the zombie walk. We'll just drag that one in and add it. And here's where you connect the clip to the proper skeleton. So it automatically recognized that it should find the YBot skeleton, because I brought the YBot in first, and it recognizes that's the one to put. If it didn't, you could choose it from a list here, but you don't have to do that. It's going to use the exported time, so it automatically recognizes that there's animation on it. And that's it. Just import all. If you double click the animation sequence that gets created, you will see the animation on the YBot skeleton, and you know it's okay. Let's close it. And we'll do one more. We'll go back to this one and we'll pull in the thriller one. Drop it in. Same options. Exported time, YBot skeleton, import all. This one's a longer animation, so it takes longer. It's got a lot of more things on it. So as soon as this is done importing, I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to go and make the connection to the Metahuman skeleton. And the way you do that is you do it per clip. You do it on the clip itself. So that one came in. Again, I'll double click it just to open the blueprint for it to look at the animation sequence and see that it's doing all the movements that I would want it to be doing. On the left, you can see the skeleton rig. We don't have to mess with any of that. As long as it looks like it's doing the right thing, it's fine. Now I want to connect the, not the Y-bot skeleton, but the clips. So they say animation sequence on them. I have two of them. One's Thriller, the other one's the Zombie Walk. We'll do the Zombie Walk one first. So right-click it, and this is the part that's new in Unreal Engine 5.4. You're going to go to Retarget Animations. So right-click it and choose Retarget Animation on the clip. It's going to bring up a window, a retargeting window. What I want to do is I want to take the Y-bot and connect it to my Metahuman skeleton, which for mine, it's M_tall normal weight body. Now, how would you know what it is? Yours is going to have a similar name. It might say, mine says M tall normal weight body, NRW body. Yours, if it's a female character, is going to say F short or tall, normal weight, or, you know, there's 3 different weights, there's 3 different heights, and they're going to have that in there. And the last part of it will say body. If you want to know exactly what yours is, just go find your Metahuman. Mine's called BP Topher Mesh. If you click on it, and then you go and into the details, you'll see that there's a root body face. If you click on body here, so you have the name of your character, you have body, then your details will be for the body, and you can go down until you find mesh. And when you find mesh, it's going to tell you on the right there that I'm using the M_TAL_NRW_body. That's how you find the what's called the base DNA body of your character, of your Metahuman character. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this window because I know I've chosen the correct one. It's only going to show your hands and feet, because if you have clothes on, your clothes are your actual body. So you'll just see your hands and feet. And then you want auto-generate retargeter turned on, and you want to choose your zombie walk. It actually brought up both clips. So I suppose I could do both of them here. I could try, but I'm going to do them one at a time. So I'm going to export the animation, choose zombie walk, export animations. Actually, if you double click zombie walk, it'll show you if it's working. And I can see the way the hands are moving and the feet are moving, that it is working. It's retargeted it correctly. So I'm going to just export that animation, and I'm going to do it into my anims folder. I'm going to call it under replace. I'm going to call it ybot underscore zombie walk anim. You can't be too long with the names, but that seems to be fine. Ybot zombie walk anim export. It's going into my anims folder. Include reference assets, yes. Okay, there it is. It's an animation sequence. I could double click it again to take a look at that. It looks really weird without hair. And then we'll do the other one too. So I'll go back to my YBot folder and I'll do my, what was it? Thriller. Right click. Retarget animations. Going to the M-tall normal weight body skeleton mesh, which is my Metahumans mesh. We're going to do the Thriller one. We can double click it and see if it looks like it's working correctly. And then we're going to export the animation. We'll call it ybot underscore thriller anim export. Make sure it's going into my anims folder. And use the default settings. So this one might take a little bit longer, but once I have my two sequences, so now I have so it actually incremented the name and it ignored the YBot stuff. I'm not sure why it did that, but you should just be aware of that, it did not name it the way I thought it was going to name it, but that's fine. I'm going to use Thriller Part 2, Zombie Walk 1. I know what they are. I'll go ahead and go to my sequencer. So this is the sequencer that I had at the end of last class that I recorded. It's just the character in its A pose with a camera animation. My camera animation is a little different, but it's close to the same thing. And I'm going to go back to the front or the beginning of my track, which is 0. And I'm going to bring in this Metahuman again to the sequencer. So the way you do that is go select your Metahuman up in the outliner in the upper right, drag it down into your sequencer and drop it in there. It's going to create a sequencer channel for it, for the body and the face. And they're going to go all the way across of however many frames you have. So I had 500, so it's doing it 500. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the control rigs here. They will prevent the mocap animation from showing up. So you got to delete those. You're going to see them. It'll automatically open the Metahuman in the left here. You'll see body, and you'll see a control rig for the body. We don't want to use that right now. So we're going to just hit delete on your keyboard to get rid of it. And the face will also have one. You can go ahead and get rid of that one too. We're actually not going to have any animation on the face, but you might as well get rid of that control rig. You don't need it. And then I want to add to the body the motion capture animation that I just created, starting with the zombie walk. So you find where it says body, you go to the plus symbol next to it, which says track. You're going to add an animation track. And if you go to the very bottom of your animations, you should see the new ones that you brought in. And the one that I want is this zombie walk one. That's the one I just brought in. So I'll choose that. And then I can see that because I had my cursor or my frame setting on 0, it started the track there, and it goes however long that track is. And if I move it, you can see that my character's doing a zombie walk. Now, if I go beyond that track, it's going to do something weird, like separate my head from my body. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you end your track before your animation ends, or your head's going to pop apart or something. So I'll go back to the beginning again. And actually, I don't want to be on the beginning. I want to be sort of towards the end, maybe a little bit past this track, actually where the head's popped off. That's fine. I'm going to go there because I'm going to add the second track. And I'm going to add it. I want to add it on the same track, but then I'm going to overlap them to blend those two animations together. And so I'll go to the plus symbol again. Actually, I'm sorry. Make sure you're on body. Go to the plus symbol again, animation, and go down until you find the other one that you want to add. So mine's going to be Thriller Part 2, and I'll choose that. So actually, let me undo that. I'm going to try that again. Instead of going to body and animation, I just want to try it from here on animation. Yeah, that's what I want. So don't go to body and add animation if you want to mix the tracks. Because if you want to mix the tracks, you want to use the plus symbol next to animation where you already put your first track. Otherwise, it's going to create a new track, and it'll place the new animation on that new track. And then I could drag it to the other track in order to mix them, but then I got to delete the other track. It's just a pain. So you might as well not use the plus symbol next to body for the second track. Just use the plus symbol next to animation. It will add it to the same track. And then we can drag this second animation over. Now, I know that when this is moving, I would like it to get to maybe around frame 100 and then start transitioning to this other animation. So I'm going to move my cursor to frame 100 and I'll drag this back until it pops to 100. And now there's an overlap. If I zoom in there, you'll see that there's actually a transition happening. Use this little thing to zoom. There's a transition happening between these two clips. And if I scrub over that, you'll see that it goes from where it's doing a walk, and then it like slides back and starts the Thriller walk. So you don't want it to slide back like that because it's taking it back to the 0 point in space where the original mocap was done. What you want it to do is you want it to add on to that other animation in the same place where the character was when that other animation ends. And there's a way of doing that. You go to the second track and you right-click it. And then you choose to match with a particular bone. And if your character's walking, the bone you want to match to is the foot that's on the ground. So what it's going to do is it's going to take let's say the right foot, and it's gonna match the right feet between these two clips at that point where they overlap. And if it does that and the foot is on the ground, then you're not gonna have any sliding of your feet. If you match, say, the hip, the pelvis, and the feet are moving or something, it might actually make the feet slide at that point. But if you match the foot that's planted on the ground, then it will actually usually make it so that there's no foot sliding. You don't want a foot to slide between two different walks. So I'm going to choose my right foot bone. I want to match this bone with the previous clip, not the next clip, the previous clip. So I'm clicking on the second clip, and I'm going to go then find the right foot bone, which I can see that we've got R's. I'm in the R's section right now, and I'll just find foot_R. That's the right foot. So I'll choose the right foot because I happen to know that right around that area, he's about to he's taken a step with his right foot. And I may want to overlap it more. I might want it to be more like a little further back, but I do, if I'm using the right foot, I want to make sure that he's planted on the right foot before I start to, like he shifted his weight onto his right foot before I move this back to that point. So now if you look at it, it looks normal that he just stops his zombie walk and then he's going to start his thriller dance at that point. Okay, and from there he's doing his thriller dance. Okay, so I'm going to save this. At this point, I can click up here and I can set my frames to 0 to 500 and render out 500 JPEGs at 30 frames per second, 1920 by 1080 to the folder that I've been rendering out in order to now have this animation, and I'll put my music on it inside of Premiere, and that's how I made the clip that I showed you earlier. I'm going to go ahead and stop because we have a presentation in 5 minutes. I'm going to close this. We've saved all, and we'll just stop sharing.